Hi guys, so right now I'm going to be talking about my labor and delivery. So starting the 6th of October, I started having like Braxton Hicks. I didn't really think anything of it. So I said, okay, it's kind of getting more painful, like as I was trying to clean up and, nest and stuff, get stuff ready. And so I'm like, you know what? If tomorrow comes around, it's not going away. I'm just going to go in and see. So I go into labor and delivery. I was probably there not even 2 hours. And I went from like not dilated at all to 4 to 5 centimeters. So they said, okay, well, we can either admit you or you can go home and kind of see if it'll slow down. They did give me an injection that like slowed down the contractions. And then they also gave me a steroid injection just in case, because my son was obviously born at 35 and 2 days, so that's considered premature. So they gave me a steroid injection then, and then I went home because I'm like, I had my kids with me. I did have my kids with me. Sorry, I just woke up. I had my kids with me. I didn't want them to be waiting and sitting and stuff. So I said, okay, I'll just go home. If anything changes, I'll come back in. So I go home. I went to sleep. I felt better. I'm like, ooh, I feel better. But then as the day progressed, the next day, I felt like, ooh, I feel like I might need to go back in. Because I was starting to have more regular contractions. Like they were more, I think they're about like every 7 8 minutes apart. And so I'm like, let me just see, because I am 4 to 5 centimeters, so let me just make sure, because I didn't want, obviously going to labor with my kids, and I do have 3 girls already, so I went in, they told me, no, you're fine, you're still 4 to 5, but since it had been the 24 hours, they said, okay, let's give you your second steroid injection. So I got my second steroid injection, and I went home, just fine. They just told me to, like, obviously I couldn't go back to work. And they said, just relax, don't do any strenuous stuff. Otherwise, you could possibly send yourself in a full-blown labor. So I continued. I still had the Braxton Hicks, but they weren't regular. So as I was continuing, I was like, well, I do need to finish cleaning. But I said, well, they said take it easy. So I decided to sit on a chair, and like also like when I was doing things like on the floor, like vacuuming or whatever, just like sitting down while I did it. And so that's what I did. But I had to go get my daughter because I had to get her from her bus. It was 2 o'clock, so I'm like, oh, her bus is coming. I go, and the second I pull up to the location, because she gets dropped off at daycare, my water just broke and everywhere. Now, mind you, I had polyhydramnios, which just means excessive fluid around the baby. It can be caused by health issues, or it can just be unknown. And in my case, it was just unknown. I didn't have any determinations of it, so it's just like random. And I did have it with my second daughter too. So I'm like, oh, it's okay. But it's just a lot of fluid. So I end up, since I'm already in my seat, and yes, I did have my husband with me, but I'm just like, I don't want him to have to sit in it, so I'll just drive myself. And so I just took back roads there. It took me about 10 minutes to get there. It wasn't far. My kids' daycare is close. So I got to the hospital. I told them, okay, I know I'm only 4 to 5 centimeters, but my water did break. So they said, well, yes, since your water broke, we do have to actually admit you now. So I got admitted. I was still having still kind of irregularly-ish contractions. They weren't like really staying regular. So they admitted me, and after I was admitted, they're like, we're just going to watch it, and then, in an hour or so, we'll check and see if there's any progression. If there's not, we'll keep doing it. So Fast forward to about 4 hours in, still staying at 4 to 5 centimeters, still having irregular contractions. So they said, let's give you Pitocin, just to kind of get your contractions a little more regular. So I said, okay, that's fine. Let's get the contractions a little more regular. So I got the contractions more regular. They started to hurt, and every time my nurse came in, she said, "Would you like epidural?" And I was like, no, not yet, because I felt like with my other children, my other two daughters, not my first, I was able to get to almost 7-8 before I got the epidural. So I got the epidural. I was almost 8 centimeters. But I knew what was going to happen after that, because it always happens to me. I get the epidural, and then within like a half an hour, boom, I'm ready to push. And that's exactly what happened. So I got the epidural, and the anesthesiologist is horrible. Like, he's so rude. He's telling me be quiet because I'm in so much pain. I'm having contractions during, because at this point, like I said, I was about 7-8 centimeters, and I was in a lot of pain. The contractions were coming more closer together. I think they were about like every 3 minutes apart at that point, 2 minutes. And so, yeah, they were coming back to back, boom. And he really seemed like he didn't know what he's doing, because he just kept stabbing and stabbing and stabbing my back. And I had my back arched, everything like I was supposed to. It wasn't like I was in a wrong position. And so I just kept asking, like, hey, what's going on? Like, why do you keep stabbing me? Like, why does this hurt so bad? Because I've had an epidural before, and it wasn't like that. And he's like, I'm trying to make sure it's in the right spot. And I said, okay, like, I'm working with you. And now, mind you, 10 minutes had went by, and I'm like, why are you still doing this? Like, I'm in so much pain. I'm crying at this point. My husband's like, dude, what is this? Like, practice day? Like, you don't know what you're doing? Like, what are you doing to my wife? Like, she's in pain. You just keep stabbing her. Or shouldn't you be done? Because all the other anesthesiologists that I've had, it took like maybe 5 minutes with prep and then poking and be done, And so 10 minutes is rolling around and you're still stabbing my back, dude. Like, what's going on? And so finally he does it. And I'm like, hey, like, that was really painful. Like, worse. It was, at that point, it was worse than my actual contractions. And so I'm like, this hurts so bad. Like, why did you try to hurt me? I've had it be done before. It was not like this. And he's like, I just want to make sure it was in the right spot, because I seen that you've had one where it wasn't in the right spot. And I'm like, okay, I get that. I said, but the other 2 anesthesiologists were quick and they were done. And he's like, I'm sorry. But then as he was leaving, I could hear him talking to the nurses in the hallway. And, like, I couldn't fully hear what he's saying, but I know he was, talking smack. And so that kind of just irritated me more, but I was just like, let me just focus, because the contractions were coming. Now, I got maybe 5 minutes of peace, but then the pressure started coming. Mamas who've had labor, you know that it doesn't matter if you have the epidural. When that pressure comes, you feel it. And so then my doctor came and checked me again, and she's within like 10 minutes, and I was about 8, 9. I'm like, oh. And so then she told me, she said, okay, whenever you have the urge to push, just let me know. She's like, I'm going to notify your doctor that you're about 8 or 9. So I said, okay. And I swear she walked out for 5 minutes, and I said, I pushed the button, and I'm like, I'm feeling the pressure. And she said, okay, let me check you again. You're probably not, but let me just check. She checks and said, oh yeah, you're ready. And so then the doctor comes in, and she was very, very rude, mind you. And I was just like, hello, like, and I was already upset because my OB wasn't there. This has happened 3 times now. My 3rd time, he wasn't there. So I was a little bit upset, but I said, hey, we'll work with it. I'm sorry, we'll do what we gotta do.